And welcome everyone to Women on the Rise Lightning Talks, where we explore topics around career growth, leadership, work-life balance, mentorship, challenges, and lessons learned with our pioneer alumni. Some housekeeping before we go ahead and get started with our introductions. Our lightning talks are purposely designed to be short. That way we can be conscious of everyone's time. And we kindly ask that you submit any questions you have via the Q&A tab, and make sure you upvote the ones that are most interesting that you would like to also have answered live. And we will try our best to get to everyone's questions, but in the case that we don't, our guest today has graciously agreed to answer them after the event. And with those two things out of the way, my name is Marilyn Gracia from the Alumni Association Board, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Today, we are joined by alumna Gabriela De Queiroz, Senior Developer Advocate and Senior Engineering and Data Science Manager at IBM. Here, she leads the CODAIT machine learning team, and she works in different open source projects and is actively involved with several organizations to foster an inclusive community. She is the founder of Our Ladies, a worldwide organization for promoting diversity in the R community, with more than 150 chapters in 45 plus countries. She has worked in several startups where she built teams, developed statistical models, and employed a variety of techniques to derive insights and drive data-centric decisions. Gabriela, I want to thank you so much for joining us today for a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and hello, everybody.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. You know, since graduating, can you kind of just share us your career path and what that has looked like for you?
Yeah. So once I finished my master's program at Cal State, I joined a startup, a very small company. So I was there for a few years doing data science, working different projects. That was 6 years ago. So it's been a while. And after that, I joined other companies. So I joined 2 other startups. And then in 2018, I joined IBM first as a developer advocate, and then I became a machine learning manager. And that's where I am right now.
Awesome. And for those who aren't familiar, what does the R stand for in like Our Ladies, and what does that term stand for?
So R is a programming language. So it's a programming language used for data analysis. It's used by data scientists, biologists, journalists, anyone pretty much who is analyzing data, using data in some way. It's very similar to Python. Sometimes Python is more like well-known. So it's very similar to Python. And it's been around for over almost 30 years now. And so R is the programming language, and it's Our Ladies is an organization that I founded in 2012. So it's been 8 years. And the idea was to bring more diversity into the R community. So the goal was to have a place or a space where everybody would feel welcome and safe, and where we would learn together and share with each other. So now we are pretty much everywhere in the world, in different cities, several countries, and pretty much everywhere.
That's amazing. And I'm really excited to talk more about that later on in the talk, because that 45 plus countries, that is just incredible. You know, I'm not too familiar, I think, just with the STEM industry and the STEM field. And, you know, how do you find the time? How do you find the time to have a work-life balance, especially in the field of data science, where there's a constant learning requirement?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that goes, kind of like being disciplined, and also like being able to focus. So I try to not distract myself very much when I'm doing work, or if I'm working with the organization. So, and also like everything that I do, it's very relatable. So one thing relates to the other one, that relates to the other one. So in the end, even though it sounds like a lot of work, it is a lot of work, but they are very, they work together, right? But I'm very cautious about and mindful about, having my time to relax, my time with family, my time to do my hobbies, my time to work, my time to work out. So I think it's like trying to focus and trying to do things that complement each other. If it's very different, it's hard to, like to keep to have a focus. So that's pretty much what I try to do when I'm doing all these different projects.
So a lot of boundary setting, especially when it comes to work, and you even mentioned like your personal time, your self-care time.
Yeah, and like saying no. It's very important to say no and say, no, I can't do this. I have enough on my plate. I cannot do this. Maybe later. Right now, I need to focus on this.
And sometimes it's harder. It's harder to say no. So we're so used to saying yes to everything and being yes people. And if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I've heard that before, you like that phrase used before. So great advice on saying no when you need to say no. And just from graduating, as soon as you graduated, was that the time when you got your first job in data science?
Uh, so I was a statistician before. So before getting my master's, I was working with statistics, but more in the university environment, like doing research. So it was my first job in the industry as a data scientist. So before I was a statistician, right? But it was the first work, my first job in the industry, and that was a little bit after my first year, my master program.
And I think a lot of people are curious right now just because, a lot of people have been laid off and some people are graduating. And, how did you go about seeking that opportunity?
Yeah, it's very tough. Like before the pandemic, it was hard. And now I can imagine that it's even harder. So, especially in the data science career, one thing that happened, it happens to everyone. It happens to me, happens to everyone that I know. You are going to get rejected a lot, right? Because either the company doesn't know exactly what they are looking for, or they are looking for a very specific person with like a very specific kind of like profile. So I would say try to apply as much as you can. Try to do networking, like try to reach out to people, try to talk to people that work for companies that you are interested in working for. Try to show your work, right? Because right now, like the market is very competitive. Even though there are a lot of jobs, there are a lot of people as well. So how can you stand out from the mass for the rest of the people? So like make sure that you have a portfolio. Portfolio is the way that I see a data science portfolio is like a way that people can look at your work, like a side project, a project that you did when you were at school, like a school project. It can be anything, but like we as hiring managers, we are always looking to see what the person, the candidate has to offer, right? Because it's very hard to grasp everything from an interview. So we try to look beyond.
Definitely come prepared, have work to show for it. That's really great advice to give. And one of our alumni was asking how you launched your career after your MS program, and I don't know if you have anything more to add in regards to that.
Yeah, so I was, from the very beginning, I was involved with communities like, for example, Our Lady. So I was in a way showing my work or whatever I had to offer, even like through like giving workshops, tutorials, or anything. Like I was not, I didn't consider myself an expert in the topic or in the subject, but I would go and try to teach others and then learn myself as well. So I would say that helped me a lot, like being part of this community and knowing other people and networking, asking about what are the opportunities that are available.
And at this point when you graduated, how long has had Our Ladies existed, the support network that you had created?
So I started my program, the master's program, in September of 2012, and I founded Our Ladies in October 2012.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty close, yeah. So like as Our Ladies was growing, I was going through my master's program, so things were running in parallel.
Wow, that's awesome to see. You just really just dived right into it. Awesome. Another one of our alumni, they did ask about, I guess, what particular skills you really need to get a job at IBM, and just in general as a data scientist.
Yeah, so IBM is huge. So we have over 300,000 employees. So it's huge. And there are like several data scientists throughout the company. Uh, Depending on the team that you are going to work for, you are probably going to need a set of skills that are different from another team. For example, my team in particular is very unique because we work with open source. There are several projects that we as a data scientist, we use that are open source. We create projects that are open source and we contribute to external projects that are open source. So we don't have, I would say we don't need the traditional skills to do this work. But I think in general, we it, I kind of like I split in two pieces. So one is like the technical skill that everybody talks about, which is like, oh, you need to know statistics, you need to know machine learning, and you need to know one programming language at least, right? Either R or Python, and then SQL or SQL. And then the other piece is the soft skills, which I call essential skills that you usually
Yes.
don't learn, that you usually don't learn at school, right? So,
Mhm.
so things like communication. How do you communicate the results that you get from a model? From like how you translate the numbers to something that people can understand, that they are not as technical as you. So communication, curiosity is another piece. Like ask the why. Why am I doing this? Why am I getting this result? Why am I using this algorithm or this technique? And then I would even say there is more like flexibility to adapt to different companies or domains or environments, right? So one day maybe you are working for um, a finance company, maybe like later on you'll be working for um, a advertisement company, right? So you have to be able to move from one domain to the other.
A lot of flexibility, and I think we have a live question that is, it kind of goes into this question that you kind of just answered. You know, how do you communicate as an expert in your field, and how are you communicating that to other departments who don't really understand, you know, the importance of your project, of exactly what you're saying? And do you feel like those essential skills, like you developed that on the job essentially, or do you feel like that was stuff that you had to work on?
On the job and even before, right?
Mhm.
So uh, it, it kind of like I was acquiring those skills as I was uh, evolving in my career, like not only on my job, but also like on the other things that I did.
Mhm.
Um, um, so yeah, so how do you communicate when you are expert, but other departments don't understand? So I have a real case where I worked for a company where I was the only data scientist and I was working with like several engineers, 20 plus engineers. And they had no idea what I was doing. Like my CEO, the whole company, they had no idea what was the role of a data scientist. They knew that data science was a good thing to have in the company, that it was essential to have a data scientist, especially because they were collecting a lot of data. But they
Yeah.
had no idea like the process. They would not understand like the how long my work would it take to get some results. So I had to educate the whole company around my work and show them, uh, this is my workflow. This is how I work. This is like the type of things that I do. This is what can go wrong. This is what can go right. So there is a lot of education and talking and talking and talking, which was, it can be tiring, but also like if you don't explain, then they will not see a value on your work,
Yeah.
right?
I loved how you said it's essential to have these soft skills, and often people get very hyper focused on the technical skills and the degrees and these very specific things that we need to have. And ultimately, you're going to essentially be the best candidate when you have both, a good balance of the technical skills and the soft skills.
Right.
And
Yes.
yeah, so thank you for mentioning that. We do have another question here. Now it's a little technical. Someone had, and one of our alumni asked, your bio mentions R. Would you still recommend R over Python to a newbie, or maybe to someone who's entering this field?
Yeah, there is always this question. So I'm going to say I'm biased because I love R. So I say, usually I respond this as, I like Python, but I love R. But this is very unique because of my experience. So I don't have a favorite one. I think each language, it's better in one case or the other, and they complement each other. So if you are a beginner and you don't know where to start or which language to use at first, I would say just try both for a little bit and see which one you like better. So and then pick one. Once you think like, oh, this is the language that makes more sense for me, pick that one and go a little bit further, try to understand a little bit more. If you know R or if you know Python, but then you join a company that uses the other language, it's going to be easier for you to transfer your knowledge to one language to the other. It's probably going to take you a little bit to adjust your mindset on how the language work. But it's going to be, you are going to be able to do this transition without like big problems. So again, I think I have my preference because R was the first language that I learned. But I think it's very unique to each person. Like I would say, try one, see which one you like better, and then stick with that one.
I hope that was helpful for whoever asked that question. And it's interesting too, because I've heard of a lot of these terms used before, and I always wonder like, oh, now I know that it's the programming language. So thank you for being very insightful. And we have another question that someone asked, what do you see as the future of machine learning?
Wow, that's a good question. What is the future of machine learning? Okay, so I think the field in general, like the AI, which is like the bigger umbrella, more and more, like right now we are discussing a lot about like discrimination and bias and ethics around AI algorithms. So more and more, we as a data scientist, we need to think about the issues more than ever, right? So we are seeing an implication of those algorithms in people's life. So more and more, this is going to be part of our data science pipeline where, we need to see or think, is our data that we are going to use, is the data bias, right? Is the data, should we collect more data? Should we adjust the data? And then we need to think, is there algorithm bias, right? So can this affect someone? So it's an area that it's growing and it's going to grow more and more and more. So that's where I feel that the whole AI ecosystem is moving towards. So it's a new field that is being created called AI ethics, and it's going to be, it should be part of like a data science program as well, something that should be discussed.
Yeah, you brought up a really great point. So that's not something that exists now, AI ethics, or it does exist now. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like it's starting to get more visibility, and companies are
Mhm.
investing heavily on that.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
important to have. Especially now things are evolving and changing very quickly and very fast. And going into the kind of the next question, I'm really excited to dive in and learn more about this. And it's also one of our live questions someone asked as, you being a founder of an AI inclusive organization, first I want to start with how did this idea, how did this idea grow from a seed into a full blown jungle almost? And let's just start there.
Yeah. So so I was working with Our Ladies for several years. And then last year, with the whole thing around bias and discrimination and ethics in AI and all the implications that I was seeing around the algorithms, like how the algorithms were affecting people's life, like people were going to prison because of the algorithm, or a lot of discrimination, so many cases. And I was seeing a lot of discussion happening, especially in the US and China, around facial recognition, especially. And then I'm like, I have to do something around this, because not everybody in the world is aware of what is happening. And
Mhm.
especially people from especially underrepresented minorities, they are going to be affected the most, and they are not aware, they don't know what's going on. So I had this desire to do something, and then one thing that I knew how to do was to create community. So I'm like, what why don't I create a community or organization where I will try to bring more people to work in AI, that I will bring more awareness of AI issues. So our mission, the AI inclusive, which I have a slide here that I can share. So our mission is to increase the representation and participation of minority groups in AI. So we are the first step is bring awareness of the issues, and the second step is empower the community through like education courses, events, so they can get into technology and then work in AI, right? So that's the mission of the group. I'm just going to real quick, I know that we don't have a lot of time, but just real quick, if anyone is interested, like there are some links over here. um, we are very active on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And let me just go to this last slide. Um, there are some links over here. So we try to host events, but we also try to share knowledge through the social media. So we share resources on Instagram, Twitter. We try to partner with conferences so we can provide free tickets to our community. And now we are partnering with a data science bootcamp, so we can provide several scholarships for the community. So that's something that's coming later this month. So join us. So that's my call to action is join us. So you can learn more about AI, and we can create this community.
That is so impressive, and I think very much needed for multiple reasons, all of the ones you mentioned. I also feel like it increases the visibility for women who are interested in pursuing, a profession in this field. And I think sometimes we have a lot of fears that hinder our motivation to go after those things. And this is a huge, a resource to have a network for people. Not often people are able to find this. So thank you so much for sharing this and for sharing the info. We also did include some information as well in the, oh, excuse me. Yes, we'll share some information as well, some links in the chat. So what's going to be next for Our Ladies? You mentioned that you did have something coming up for the scholarships. And where do you see this in the next 5, maybe 10 years from now?
Yeah, so this is for the AI inclusive. It's not for the Our Ladies. So for the Our Ladies, when I was creating this new organization, I stepped down from Our Ladies because there is a team behind Our Ladies, and the organization is doing very well. So I kind of like, I felt that I did my job, so I should move on and do something else. So I'm focused on the AI inclusive since last year, and that's where we are going to provide a lot of scholarships, and we are providing free tickets. So someone ask in the chat how can they get the scholarship and all that, and so join us, because that's the best way to get your foot in the door for programming and scholarships. So we announce everything through the social media, and you can also join our website so you can get up to date to whatever is happening.
Thank you so much for sharing both of those. We really appreciate it. And it looks like we are kind of wrapping up on time here. Just really quickly, one last question. If people want to connect with you, how can they reach you? If you're on LinkedIn maybe, or anywhere else?
Yes, so I am everywhere. I really like social media because it's a way for us to connect. So yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, even though like LinkedIn inbox is such a mess. But yeah, LinkedIn, very active on Instagram and Twitter. If you go to AI Inclusive, you are going to find me. And yeah, so if anyone needs anything, it's pretty hard to answer every email, but I try as much as I can to answer everything, to mentor folks. There are several folks from Cal State that I've been mentoring, and I mentor in the past. So it's something that is always on my mind, like the give back through communities, give back through mentorship, like provide opportunities for people that don't have as much opportunity, right? So yeah, so you can reach me anytime.
Awesome. And with that last question answered, thank you so much. We are out of time. Gabriela, I just want to thank you for joining us today. And thank you just so much for sharing your journey, your experience, and of course, all of the very insightful advice with our fellow alumni.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much to our Pioneer alumni who have joined us this evening.